Hello, everybody, and welcome to Grit number 4. My name is Brandon. That is Arron, and that guy over there, this dude, right? Let me see if I can drag his face onto here. That's Neal. Look at that. And I'm trying all this new screen configuration, so you guys will have to forgive me tonight. And thank you, by the way, everybody for joining us. Thank you, Neal and Arron, for joining me. Tonight, we are going to be getting a little bit more into the mental aspect, the actual grit, the pieces of grit, which are that mental performance, that kind of approach to how you don't just get your training done, how you don't just get the race done, but how you handle the life that surrounds that. Because let's face it, even if you're somebody who's like a crazy ultra runner like Courtney DeWalter or something, life is still way more of your day than running, you know? And so anyway, before we get into that, I do want to introduce Mr. Neal Palace right there. And you can see Neal's, I'm dragging this over there. There we go. His Instagram handle right there, Neal Palace. If you're listening to this and not watching the video version, it's NEALPALLES, all one word, on Instagram. Give him a follow, say what's up. And so Neal, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am a licensed clinical social worker. Been a licensed clinical social worker for 20 years, or 20 plus years. And I am also a mental performance consultant. I got an additional degree in applied sports psychology as of 2019. And I am actually working towards certification. You know, it requires a lot of hours and an exam to become a certified mental performance consultant. And I work with athletes on mental health and performance. I specialize with endurance athletes, but I've worked with hockey goalies. I've worked with equestrians. So, you know, it's just complete wide range of different athletes.
That's awesome. And you yourself, though, from a sports background, you're an endurance guy.
I'm an endurance junkie. I mean, a guy, yes. So I've been running since high school, and never at a very, very high level, but just, you know, recreational runner.
Yeah.
Got into marathons 20 years ago, and just started, you know, eating it up, loving it, reflecting back on, you know, my life is complicated in the sense that the early part of my life actually, so after high school, I went to college at the University of Oregon and became an outdoor educator. And I worked for a program called Outward Bound for 15 seasons in Oregon, in California, and then eventually here in Colorado. And I taught backpacking and rock climbing and mountaineering, whitewater rafting. And that all kind of fed into this endurance thing.
Yeah.
And got into marathoning. And then 2014, I said, well, you know, did the Boston Marathon. I said, all right, I'm good here. Let's go on to ultra endurance. And so I started diving into ultra endurance at that point, and then immediately signed up for the Leadville 100 the next year. When you could, actually there was a lottery, but it was pretty easy to get in at that point. Yeah. 2015 was the first year of the lottery.
That's fantastic. And so that everybody knows, fun fact, I think it's a fun fact, Neal is my neighbor. Like, so it was weird. If I recall correctly, Neal, please correct me if I'm wrong, but like we moved in and to our house here in the Front Range, and we were, I don't know, I was doing something in the backyard, and my daughter, there were a bunch of kids. The way our neighborhood is set up, it's not super important, but like there's a road and there are kind of these kind of cul-de-sac sort of things, like a secondary driveway. Yeah. And so my daughter goes, there's a bunch of girls that look like they're about her age across the way and the next thing over. And so she goes over there and my daughter, any of you who are watching Gearist and familiar with Gearist are well versed in the fact that she is not shy. So she goes over, introduces herself, and she comes back and she's like, Dad, so I met this girl, Mackenzie. Her dad knows you. I was like, what? And Neal knew about Gearist. I was like, what the hell? Look at that, man. And it happens that it was in the midst of all that car crash stuff and all that stuff that I can't legally talk about. But here we are. So that said, I should have brought Neal a frosty adult beverage because he's like 50 feet away. I should just chuck it across there. So I apologize, Neal, but I am drinking tonight. And Neal, last week I had an El Gos from Avery. Have you ever had that?
Uh, I believe so. Yes.
The one with the skull on it, the like Dia de
Yes.
los Muertos. Yeah,
Yes.
so good. That
Really
salty.
good.
Oh God, such a good after run. Anyway, this week I'm drinking a lime lager from Sanitas Brewing Company right here in Boulder County, Colorado. Arron, what you got, buddy?
I've got Virginia Beer Co.
Uh,
Freeburst
nice.
IPA, very good. Um, if you
Probably
like an
the
IPA, I know you're not the IPA fan, but sometimes you just gotta chew your beer down.
you do like chewing a vine of hops. Gross. I'm telling you, it's gross. So
Next time I'll bring my own.
yeah, well, I'll bring you one. How about that? I'll bring you one. It's a deal. We'll do that as long as it's not an IPA, because that's not. Cause in fact, if you want some IPAs, I have some that I hate IPAs with a ugh. Anyway, so before we get into talking to Neal, kind of about let me kind of preface a few things here. So Neal has generously agreed, at least as of now, generously agreed to come on more than once, because I was trying to think like, how do we approach exactly what we're going to talk about, because it's so, the mental aspect of these things is so broad, right? That we call this grit, as you guys know, who've you been listening for a while. We call it grit because it's about the grit to get to the finish line, to get to the start line, the grit to train, all of those pieces, and really putting together the life that surrounds that. And so what I thought we would do tonight is, and there's some more things relative to Neal's experience specifically at Leadville that I want to ask about, but this evening, what I'd like to do is just kind of pretty high level from from that psychological aspect of performance, which is so much of what grit is, especially if you've read the Duckworth book, Grit, but before we do that, let's talk briefly about our weeks. And since Neal, you're a guest and you're constantly running and making me feel like a sluggish fat ass, why don't we talk about, are you training for anything yourself? And if not, I know you're still getting after it. So what's going on with you training wise?
So I'm training for the Bighorn 100, which is June 17th, 18th. I think it's 17th, 18th. I better have my days right. And then prior to that, I've got the Quad Rock 25. So busy
Nice.
training weeks right now. We're finishing up a tempo block, and then I'll go into a steady state run block soon after this, and really kind of a focused, really kind of getting more specific to the race over the next 2 months, really. So yeah, today I was up on climbed Bear Mountain, and then went down around to Green Mountain, and then went back down. And that was
Nice.
a good for almost 4 hours. 13 miles for me, but Bear Mountain is a fun peak here in Colorado.
Classic. And
It's very humbling, no matter what.
you get to that false summit, right at the saddle there, and
Oh,
you're just,
it's
you know,
I love that fall summit because I get to it really quickly. It's the next summit.
there's no running up that unless you're Killian Jornet. It's just hiking.
It's fast moving. There was a little bit of snow and ice up top.
Yeah.
It would be nice to have some crampons.
Yeah.
But I made it to the top and then made it down and around, and it's a fun run. It's beautiful. Beautiful.
Have you ever done the what's it called? Is it the Skyline Traverse that you can start either north or south from, what is it? Sanitas, Flagstaff, Green, Bear, South Boulder, and then back, or opposite?
I haven't done it. It's on my radar. I just have to fit it into the training.
It's a long day, especially if you do that double back.
And for me, it's, when I train, it's going to be has to be really specific to what I'm doing, and, Leadville is an example, it's a race that I would do a lot of. That's not really a specific rate run for Leadville. You get specific pieces to it. You get a lot of running on, there's, I don't want to say fire roads, but it's it could be a lot of fire roads, and you don't find that in the Skyline Traverse. So you got to
No.
think about things specifically on
That's a
that.
good point. That's a great point.
Yeah. Oh, that's the other thing I do is I do coach ultra runners too. So
Nice.
kind of the side job of a side job and the side job. So
I love it. That's fantastic. Yeah, Bear Peak, that was my daughter's first ever peak bagging that she ever had. It's just so, Arron, so you know, and anybody listening, Bear Peak starts at about 6,000 and it caps out at 8,500.
yeah, it's about 85. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
a little higher.
And it's, if you're looking at Boulder, it is the high peak on the left of the Flatirons. It's right above Flatiron, what, number 2? Number 1? I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's right up, you know what I'm talking about. I'll put a link in the, let me take a note to put a link in the show notes. Yeah.
So it's 2,500 feet of gain over what mileage?
6?
3 miles?
3?
3 or 4.
Nice.
So, you know, when you think about the specificness to Leadville, yeah, that's a great piece for training for Hope Pass.
Yep.
Hope Pass is, you know, a quarter of the race, you know.
Right.
So up and down.
Yeah.
But Hope Pass is at 10,000 feet. And so there's other places I tend to go, or is it 12,600 feet? There's other places I prefer to go to get that training and get that specific. So
Yeah, Brainerd Lake would be a good spot for that, Mount Audubon.
Where?
Although Mount Audubon and Brainerd Lake, you go out.
Good. Up Battle Mountain. So long trailhead.
Yep.
It's, you know, you go up, down the other side, and then you go back up and over. So you'll accumulate the same 3,000 feet of vert that you'll need. I found it to be a great training ground. You get up to 12,000. It's perfect.
Yeah, that's a beast too. I was telling my daughter we're going to try to do longs later this summer.
Awesome.
We'll see. It's a timing thing, right? And the weather has to agree and all that stuff. So, so Arron, well, thanks, Neal. I love it. I love it. Arron, so you had about 12,000 millimeters of vert this whole entire week.
Maybe if we're being generous. I didn't do bridge repeats today or this week, so yeah, I was spent 3 days in Chicago, so I went from flat to flat. So the Des Plaines River Trail is right by our corporate office, so I got to run that, and it's horse trail, so it's wide and flat and goes for like 45 miles. So
Nice.
Down and back. Went one direction on Tuesday, the other direction on Wednesday, and then back the other direction on Thursday.
That's so exciting.
I mean, it's better than the treadmill.
That's true, and at least the water is it's the lake instead of the ocean. So there's something.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean,
so it was nice. It was week didn't cap out as much as I wanted to. You know, between family and kids and work and travel. And then we had a local race this week where I volunteered at today. Didn't get all the miles I wanted to, but it was a good week. Still feel good. So everything's, still full steam ahead.
Awesome. So for me, as Neal, I can't remember, you and I talked about this, and I touch on this here and there. So because of my car crash, all that stuff, and frankly, just finding the motivation with all the life stuff going on, I'm getting back at it, right? Since a lot of that crash stuff kind of, from a legal standpoint, has gone the way of the dodo. So as I get back at it, it's like really just building, being very, very conscientious about it and getting back to pure heart rate based training. Because what I did for so long, man, was, as I'm sure we are all guilty of doing it sometimes, is get out there and you start running and it feels too easy. And then you're like, oh my God, I could totally go faster than this. And then you push it too hard like a moron and you blow yourself up. So now I've been very good the past 2 weeks about straight up heart rate, just zone two, right? So I usually typically right now we'll do 3 weeks and then a tempo week and then 3 weeks and then a tempo week and so on and so forth. As I get closer, I kind of give myself the flexibility just in case the volume starts to udge in there to go 2 and 1, because sometimes that pattern works a little bit better for my body. But that was my body 5 years ago, so we'll see where it goes now. And then today, so I had some good runs on the open sky. Is that what it's called over here? Yep. Good runs over there, and then today I did Hall Ranch, and I did 6 miles. So that, just so you know, Neal, that's right where, you know, that little chunk of alpine forest off of Nighthawk Trail. That's where that's right at the 3 mile turnaround. And just so everybody watching knows, let me see if I can show you guys this. This is the elevation profile of that. It's a little steep. It's not quite the gain that Neal had, but it's still 1,000 feet in 53 feet. I'm gonna own those 53 feet in 6 miles. So it was a good run though. And my calf, which I've kind of talked about intermittently, last week it's always the same calf, it seems, these past couple of weeks. So it was my soleus on the left calf. Now it's kind of shifted up to the gastroc. So I've been very conscientious about stretching and rolling and having my wife kind of work on it a little bit. And today it was a little udgy from my my 3 mile run the other day, but I was just like, whatever, man. So I threw this kind of warming CBD salve on it, sucked it up, and just hit the trail. And it went really well. The way down, as Neal could attest, is, I mean, Hall Ranch is very technical in parts. Parts of it are nice and flowy, and it's, especially once you get kind of on the backside, it's less technical. But that front side stuff, oh my God, it's so just like, you know, Arron talked about roots last time we were on there. This is roots, but it's just like roots, but they're like big rocks. Yeah, Neal, you're muted, just so you know. It's like big rocks, like break your leg, you know, 18-inch, 36-inch tall rocks in places, and you can't get it. It's nuts. So anyway.
Can you see that?
Yeah, let's see. Is that your total elevation there? Yeah.
Yep. So, and that peak is 20 feet.
Oh, wow.
So
mine was whatever mine said it was. I capped out at, let's see, 633.82. That's what I capped out at. So.
Is it on the Displays River Trail?
no, that this was at our trail behind my house.
Okay.
So my run today was a little less than 17 miles. Total elevation gain 61 feet.
That's
I think I need to find a hill.
Just go run Mount Trashmore. Just
we
saying.
ran a 10K up and down the side of that a few weeks ago, and I think it was we got 500 feet.
Got it. So Neal, so you know, Mount Trashmore in Virginia Beach is it's kind of a reclamation of a landfill.
Sure.
And so it's a mountain, sort of. I mean, it's not a mountain. It's like a hill. It's the first 300 feet of Hall Ranch.
You can hit a golf ball over it.
Yeah.
You could probably throw a football over it if you wanted to.
Yeah. We had those in the Chicago area growing up. You know, you had you know, little sled hills, and then we had one hill they actually called Mount Trashmore, and it, you know, it was an old dump that they, you know, reclaimed, and you got a little hill there. But yeah, you know, that's what we had in Chicago. Last year I coached my sister to come out and do Silver Rush. And
nice.
She lives out in the area, and you know, did very well just doing repeats on those hills. So, you know, they have a value here.
Yeah.
Leadville folks.
it's finding it where you can, right? I mean,
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, so without any further ado, then what I'd love to do is kind of transition a little bit to talking about grit. And it doesn't have to be specifically about grit, but it's really the way that I have always looked at it. And it's one of the hardest parts for me personally. And I'm biased, right? Because it's me. has been that mental aspect. And even if it's these small tricks, I remember I used to run when I lived in New York City, just under the south kind of edge. If you're going north of the GW Bridge, there's the West Side Greenway that's down there. It's fantastic. It runs the whole length of Manhattan, and there's this Little Red Lighthouse. In fact, if you guys look for Little Red Lighthouse NYC, you will see it, and I'll actually put that in the show notes. How about that? Um, and so I remember always that it's a steep because it goes from like dead on sea level, and then it kind of does this windy thing. It's very steep. It's very short, but it's steep. I mean, it's like a 30% grade, something like that. But I always made it a goal to run up it. And so it was this little mental trick that I would do where I would take my hand. This is going to sound like the stupidest thing in the world. But I like if you're at the end of a 20-mile run, it's like you take all the tricks you can get. And so I would like take my hands out and like, I mean, my hand, where are they? In my pockets? I'm running. So anyway, I would take my fingers and as I'm going, I would make like my hands into like a claw shape because to me, I was making a physical manifestation of this physical manifestation of this mental kind of action that I was trying to do. I'm clawing my way both physically, I'm driving. This is something that really works for me. And so whether that's kind of a life thing, because as Neal, I'm sure you would state, advise, attest to whatever it is, but every single thing that we do, whether you wake up properly in the morning, you have what you eat, when you take your shower, all that sort of routine, I'm very curious from a broader view, how all of that minutia can play into kind of that endurance mindset and get you not just through the days that you have to get before you have a training run, but to the starting line.
So,
Sorry, that was pretty broad. Sorry.
so you're talking about just the small minutia of every day.
Every day. Like, how does that stuff, not the endurance part yet, I feel like, but just, yeah.
The immediate thing that I think about is stress in general. Where you're getting stress. You can get stress. Stress is a normal part of life, and I'm going to normalize it. People are like, "Oh, stress, get away from it." Stress is going to come at you in any way, shape, or form. It could come in the form of lack of sleep. It could come in the form of, things not going right in the morning. I think you think about getting kids ready for school. How many times, where's my homework? Or I had something's going on. I lost my glasses or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that creates some form of stress. And then you've got work on top of it.
Yep.
You add these little pieces. Those are all cumulative.
Yep.
When you are training for a, ultra endurance race or even a 5K, taking all of that into consideration, I think is key. Knowing what's my total volume here.
Yeah.
What is my total, when I think of volume, okay, this week I ran 15 hours, but then I ran a total of 9 hours, and then you add, I walk the dogs 30 minutes each day or twice each day. And then I lifted weights. You're adding all those pieces. And then you got all this personal life stuff adding up. So when you talk about the day-to-day stuff, that's what I immediately think of. It's like, what is that? How is that going to play into what I'm doing? And so whether I'm coaching athletes or looking at the mental performance side, you've got to look at your entire life. How is this playing into us, and how can I adjust that?
So if we look at our life, and by life I mean in the broadest possible sense, like from a day-to-day aspect, you've got like a 100% circle. That's a pie chart, right? So if you, generally speaking, you're kind of, you got work, you got sleep, you got dinner, family, whatever, you got all these things, right? Eating and whatever. Um, but when you're adding an endurance event into that, it starts, I mean, it affects those things. Like sleep becomes vitally more important. Nutrition, even if it's not just like eating right, it's just simply getting the calories into your body, that you need. But where do you think people make the biggest mistake of, so you've got that circle, your kids are a must, right? They can't, they don't care that you want to go and run some silly, stupid 100-mile event in the mountains. They don't care. Apart from I mean, because you got to be dad first, right? So like, where do you think the biggest mistake that people make is in inappropriately, maybe inappropriately, I don't know if that's the right word, but allocating their time?
It's probably thinking they've got to do more volume than they really do, and I did this in 2015, be really, upfront is that, I gotta, my long run is the most important thing in the world. And I got to go and do 6 hours and, whatever that is. And, and I got to do it in the mountains. I got to go to Hope Pass and climb up Hope Pass 7 times or whatever that is. And we forget about it, all the other stuff. And so what that ended up doing is creating more stress in my life. That created a lot of stress. My life would, this is crazy. What do you do? Nothing could get in the way of training. And that was a huge mistake. And I think that's where a lot of people can go wrong, is thinking that I have to do this. As soon as you start creating shoulds, this is kind of getting to the mental performance and the psychology. As soon as you start creating rules, you're getting hooked, and it's going to pull you away from where your values are as a person. If you value family life, if you value training responsibly, responsibly and training well, that's going to pull you away from that. And so recognizing when you're getting hooked on that, you creating these rules for yourself is going to go better in the long run, is going to work better in the long run. If you, but wait a second, this is the plan. I got the volume. This is what I can do. I don't need to run 100 miles a week. I know a lot of people, friends of mine, are like, I have to get 70, 80, 90, 100 miles in for Leadville. And you have to get a certain amount of volume.
Sure.
You have an average amount of, maybe at a minimum 9 hours for the last 6 weeks, or 9 hours of running last 6 weeks at a minimum.
Yep.
You don't need to go crazy with it. It all depends what you're doing, what your level is. But at the same time, remember the other parts of that pie chart. Where are you putting your energy in that pie chart right now? What do you value? How do you, because that becomes a stressor by, hey, I'm not focusing on my family right now. Letting go, being okay with this other stuff. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Honestly, when you just said, stop, don't get yourself stuck into making shoulds or just to setting rules. And Arron and I were actually talking about this, I think on the first show, Arron, where it was like, you said, if I miss a run, because life happens, because Aaron's got 3 kids under 10, so like he's in it deep, bro. But he said, if I miss a run, I'm not going to go back and necessarily try to make up that run. I'm just going to let it happen. And whatever comes next, I just move on to the next. And so I think it's such a healthy approach, but it is a matter of, I think, setting aside your, I don't know, it's like almost a kind of egotistical obsession with your race goals and foregoing the other things that make you happy. Arron, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think I could agree anymore. For me personally, I love running. It's a big part of who I am, but it's not everything that I am. And I know that. So, kids come first, kids and wife, family comes first. And then, fitting runs in when I can is something that I've grown accustomed to over the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
I will say in the beginning of my, ultra running, I wouldn't call it a career, but the beginning of an experience. I fell into that. Okay, this week I've got, you know 1 hour here, 1 hour there. I got these very structured workouts and a very structured long run. And if I didn't get it done when I wanted to, I would do it later that night. I would make sure I would hammer in every run. I wouldn't skip anything. It took priority, and I started to lose the joy of going out for a run because it was a I have to go do this or I'm going to fail. It was the, like, fear of failing, fear of missing that run. And you know
Well,
a couple more kids later, I'm like, okay, you miss a run, life goes
yeah.
on.
And to what you were saying, and then what Neal was, to kind of what all three of us are saying, it's then if you get into this mental state of, oh crap, I missed a run, it's like it's one more percentage that you take off of that pie chart because you're pissed off about something, right? And then you get down on yourself, and then you're late for this thing over here because you're busy trying to squeeze a run in, and your kid has to go to swim practice or something like this, whatever it is. And then it's this compounding effect,
Right.
and you forget to be happy,
So common. Yeah, it's
Yes.
so common for people getting into, any level, from a recreational to elite athlete, where we get into a mindset of this needs to happen, and
Yep.
we forget everything else. And that pie chart starts becoming really one-sided and and focused. Our identity and I love talking about this, is our identity gets wrapped up in I'm a runner.
Yes.
It becomes foreclosed, and it's very important to have other parts of you, because
To
it's
be
things are good if it's foreclosed on that identity, and when it gets kicked, the fall is a lot bigger.
right. Yes, and it's be a human being. So that's a great, the way you put that. There's this. You guys know the show My Strange Addiction? Are you familiar with it? It's on like, I don't know. It's on like TLC or
Is that the one where the one dude was chewing glass or eating light bulbs?
yes, yes. So and then it's people that have these kind of, well, it's exactly what it sounds like. Things that would be, they're not a quote unquote traditional addiction like alcohol or drugs or whatever. And this one guy on it, and this was several years ago, and they were highlighting this guy, and they're like, I forget the exact setup, but it was like, my husband, he is so obsessed with running, he is going to do 100-mile race. Can you believe he's going to do 100-mile race? And she was so pissed off. And what was interesting is at the time I'm watching it, I'm like, dude, I know a lot of people that do 100-mile race. So, but what I found interesting, and I think this is what you touched on a second ago, Neal, is that it became in 100 miles. We know the people on this call know more than I, but that 100 miles is extremely attainable if accessed properly. But this guy, it became his identity. And it took away from so many other aspects of his life that it ruined his marriage, if I recall the show correctly, because he wasn't prioritizing even just sitting down and having dinner. I mean, and to be fair, I think he was, well, whatever. He was just his training method was volume, 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 volume. There was nothing else in it. And from a coaching, purely a physical standpoint, like a kinesiological standpoint, he was foregoing everything else. It was just volume. And he was killing his body, killing his marriage. I don't think they had kids, if I recall correctly, but it became his identity. So, and Neal, you're muted because I can see you about to jump on and say something so profound. Now you're back. Go ahead.
Yeah, even at the elite level. So you're talking, elite or professional level.
Yep.
A lot more of what you do is focused on running, but you still need to have those other components of you.
That's a good way to put that.
You are. and you need to touch on those components. If you are just, if all you're doing is eating, sleep, breathing, running, when, if something happens, an injury, that's when it hurts the most. And if you can start building those other portions that you really do enjoy, family, how much energy are you spending in family right now? What can I do? And it doesn't mean I'm going to spend 6 hours doing that. Getting that time communicating with your wife, doing something loving, sharing something probably other than running.
Yeah. Probably.
I was very excited that I was going to be on this podcast. Oh, good, you get to talk about running with somebody else. So, but it's important to have those conversations, and I become, the more I get into this, the more cognizant I am in my own life. How is that conversation going with my wife that isn't focused on running? Maybe it's focused on, something else that we share in common. Yeah.
How about with your question for both of you? So for me, I'll speak first person to begin with. So Sydney, my daughter, just kind of for the broader audience, she's 11 years. Actually, sorry, she is now 12 years old. She turned 12 on the 31st. She has been doing 14ers with me since she was 7. She did her first triathlon, the Longmont Kids Triathlon here in Longmont, Colorado, when she was also 7. She got second place, and she looked at me. She's like, "That's never going to happen again." And every year she has won it since then. And I think part of that is because, her mom, my ex-wife, and I were going through divorce during some of that stuff, and I had to make a choice. And I think a lot of parents, not dads, not moms, but parents, check out when you're going through divorce because it's it can be such a self-centered process, and not in a mean way. It just is what it is. It's your self-preservation mode. And so kids kind of can take a back seat, or you lean into being the best parent that you possibly can be. And I tried to do that at that time. And it was, if there's a silver lining to that, that's one of the biggest ones, is that it taught me that I can go and just absolutely do my best to kick ass as a dad, because the dividends that it pays down the road are huge. And today, I mean, we get up on, ski season is wrapping up here, but we get up at 4:30 in the morning on Saturday mornings and drive to Vail or whatever it is, right, to go ski. She does uphills, like she does alpine touring, backcountry skiing with me. And I'm saying all this not to brag or anything like that, but it's like, I think to your point, Neal, it's like finding those commonalities within your family, whether it's your wife, your wife, I don't know if tolerating is the right word, but it's like being that partner, being that sounding board to kind of have those conversations with you, and then bringing your kids into it. It's so cool. It's so cool to see that aspect, to see my kid excelling and doing all these things, and I think that can actually give you a bit of that pie chart back, because now family time and that endurance training and whatever time, especially if it's the easy stuff, that's what I like to tell myself anyway. Sydney she's dominating me, but they start to overlap, right? They have a commonality. I mean, do you find that with your daughter?
I think it's different with every family, because you're going to have some kids who are like, no, we're not getting up at 4:30. You don't know the conversations we have here at 4:30, Brandon. Saturday mornings when we're like, we're going to Winter Park today.
There you go.
So, but I think finding the commonality, if you can do that, that's awesome, because that's going to add a different layer to it, and oh my God, so awesome. The best thing in the world is for me to go down that red carpet in Leadville, at the Silver Rush, at the marathon, at the 100 run, at the 100 bike, and she's running that last 50, 100 yards with me. usually killing me at that point. But, and I'm like, my goal is to be killing, But, no,
But it's the most.
that's I'm
Sorry,
like,
go
yeah,
ahead.
and this is why, you're out there. You're showing them that, hey, you can do hard stuff, and they're there enjoying it with you. And, but yeah, for years, it's not that fun for little kids.
Yeah.
And so, it's really outside of that
Yep.
finding finding that joy, it's okay, let's, for me, it's skiing with her. She's not gonna go climb 14ers right now. Although, quick aside, don't
Yeah.
ever challenge them when you're on a ski run. I,
They'll just send it.
when I was going on the lift, I was going up on the lift. And I said, this year we should really do something challenging, like climb a 14er. And we get down on this run and we're skiing. And she's like, gets to the moguls, and she's like, let's go down this run.
Nice.
And I haven't been doing moguls, and I'm there. My mind is telling me, oh, you got to do all this training. You're going to hurt yourself. You go down the So she challenged me. So
Yeah.
that was the piece that we enjoy together. Finding those things that you really enjoy together, outside of that running and everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think there's commonalities if there's a commonality on the athletic side, whether it's skiing or running or hiking, whatever it is, they begin to kind of blend over. And so, Arron, with your kids being at their age, they've got to be right at the spot where they're going from being, I think what Neal said, they're going from being little kids to getting to the age where they can start to do some of those things. What are you finding in there that is hard, and what do you find that's really rewarding, or have you gotten there yet with the rewarding part? I mean, I know the finishing shoot, by the way, is always the part. Like, if I've seen my daughter and I'm doing like a triathlon or Ironman or something like this, and I see it just rips me apart. Like, I get, oh my God, I just sitting here, I'm like, but it just tears me up. Anyway, so relative to you and your family, what have you noticed about that?
So, I don't think, other than a half marathon, I don't think my kids have ever seen me finish a race. Just because they're usually 5 hours away, different state, But every year we run Shamrock or Rock and Roll, we always go by my house. And so they're always out there. You go past it twice. And I will say if I'm doing 8:15s for that, 10 seconds before, for like, I don't know, a tenth of a mile till I pass them, you go from 8:15 to like 6-minute miles. You're high-fiving everybody, no matter how bad you hurt, whether it's the first 5 miles or the last 2 miles. You're like, you put on that happy face, you feel great, you high-five the kid, and then next thing you know, you're like, oh, that was a lot of work. I got more running to do. Okay, I'm back down. But for the running, we have a small park. We have the state park right behind our house, and my kids love to go back there. If I have my older two, my 6-year-old and my 9-year-old, we will go run. We will, not far, maybe a mile or two, but we will run down to one side and we'll run back, and they like to see who can stay in the lead the longest, and they love it. And I find that is one of the most rewarding things in the world, because the whole time I'm like, this is great. I'll take videos of them, like running down the little hill or up the little hill. And I'm like, I'll send it to my training partners. I'm like, look, they've already got better form than I do.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. And then they swim. And I get the most joy watching them swim, because they're good. They're good at it for their age. They enjoy it. And, it's the going up to my son or my daughter before each heat and like giving them the high five and a fist bump and saying good luck, or them running back to me. You didn't give me a high five. I need a high five before I go. I'm like, rock and roll. So the joy, if you don't have the joy, there's no point in doing it. And for me and my kids, and I tell them that all the time, like, look, if you're not having fun, we're not going to do it. We maybe we have a commitment to finish whatever we're doing. but I'll never make them do it more than whatever we committed to if they're not having fun. And I found myself, if I'm not having fun with running, I'll take those breaks. I'll stop. I'll collect myself.
Yeah.
But with my kids, it's if they're having fun, I'm having fun. It doesn't matter what they're doing.
And I'll say that you mentioned a second ago taking a break. So I was doing, many of you listening may know this, many of you listening may have no clue about this, but what I went to school for, what I studied in school, what I did for my career for 10 years was I was an opera singer. And I was preparing for my senior recital, and I was doing the song cycle Dich zu liebe by Schumann. And it's a 17 song cycle, and you have to sing it song to song to song. There's not even supposed to be clapping in between, but it's a big deal and it's long. And I found myself getting so kind of like overwhelmed in just practicing and going through and through and through and through and all these things that you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to have that muscle memory, that I told my teacher, I said, I need to take, and you don't do this, by the way, it's like Neal was saying, that last few weeks, you need 9 hours on your feet. It's not a whole lot different with singing. It's like, you need that time banked. You need that from a memory aspect, from an endurance aspect, from in the singing world as well. And I said, I have to take a break because I wasn't enjoying it. It stopped being something that I was like, oh man, I can't wait to create this art, and it took away from me. But that's, and Neal, you may have heard this. I don't know if you did on one of our previous shows, but one of the things that Arron and I kind of were circling around, and then it came to mind, is find joy living. Because that's the thing that we forget to do, is that we go, well, I've got to run today. It's the same thing as I've got to have coffee today. I've got to do this, but what about just finding joy living? What's that?
You create a
yes.
Yes. You're creating a rule for yourself. I have to get this done. I have to run.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the most brilliant things, man. That's brilliant, dude.
Yeah. Don't, when and you're going to do it. You're human. Yeah. We all create these rules, but recognizing when you're getting hooked by them. I use this word a lot. When we get hooked by something, it takes us over to a place, where our behaviors aren't helpful. Asking yourself, is this helpful right now for me? Am I getting hooked by this? Is this helping me right now? By thinking I have to get this done. I have to get this run done.
So let me ask you this. I not to delve into the pages of the DSM-5 or whatever number they're on right now, but what's interesting in what you just said is that it sounds like there's a correlation between that attitude relative to endurance sports, to training, to running, whatever it is, and OCD. I have to turn this doorknob 3 times or X will happen. I have to do this. And I don't mean to denigrate anybody who's got OCD for real. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying that there is a correlation there, because it's an illogical leap that if I don't turn this light on and off 17 times, the world will stop spinning. If I don't do this run that's going to potentially harm me or take away from time or responsibility or work or family or whatever it is, then I will not finish this race. Is there a correlation there? Am I reaching?
I would never say there's a correlation. I think what you're talking about is a very human thing to do.
Uh-huh.
A very human thing to do. And we all do it in different ways. We create these rules. We find this sport is so rewarding. Yep. And we want to excel at it in the best way possible because we love the sport. Yes. Or we have something else that you love singing, and there's this passion, but the passion becomes very controlling sometimes.
All consuming.
Right. And we forget, if you look at that, remember you talked about that pie chart at the beginning, and I love using that pie chart. I'll actually use that with clients sometimes, is where are you putting your energy in relationships, recreation? Where are you, how are you focusing your life right now? Mm-hmm. When you start creating rules, and it's very common, you don't have to have some sort of diagnosis or anything. We all do this. We create these rules. Like I should run 100 miles. I need to run 70 miles to have a great, no, you don't have to, but there are certain components of it that are helpful. And then when you get hooked, the problem is when you get hooked on that is you may have some unhelpful behaviors that you do, like you avoid your family to go and run. You have the other unhelpful, you might overtrain. That's a classic example of, I have to get this mileage in. You end up getting a Leadville cooked. And I'm guilty as sin. I have way too many Leadville starts to Leadville finishes. And Leadville's, and that's the other piece of it is Leadville has that space in your mind, and how much is that? Can that create an unhelpful thought pattern? And so really working with your mind to create this helpful, okay, how am I going to do this so I'm able to take care of everything else in the pie?
Yeah.
And take care of, and that's taking care of you. That's what people
Absolutely.
forget. I think when we get, people into overtraining is they forget all the other pieces. And actually, longevity in sport happens when you are taking care of all the other stuff. If you are beating yourself up and just focusing on this one piece of this rule that you created, you're overtraining. You're not going to have that longevity. You're going to crash at some point.
So that's awesome, man. Seriously, super profound. And I think that I want to begin to kind of wrap up today, but I'd love to have you back, Neal. And one of the things that is, if you don't mind, one of the things that is, and I promise I'll throw a beer across the fence before you come back. But one of the things that is here from what you just said, is if you have a real tangible obstacle. I mean, look, covering 100 miles at 10,000 feet is obstacle enough, right? I mean, let's face facts. But, and don't answer this now, because I want to talk about this next time, or the next time that we are together. Arron lives in Virginia Beach. Leadville is, for me and you, Neal, we live at 5,000 feet. And Leadville is another 5,000 feet. For Arron, and it's already, we get up to Leadville. I get up to Leadville. I go up to Estes and swim or something. That's 8,500 feet. And I feel like I'm drowning when I was swimming. I haven't swum there in years, but it's going from 5,000 feet to 10,000 feet. That's a mother. But for Arron, going from literally 0 to 10,000, I would love to hear about kind of the psychological element, not about when you get there and you're at 10,000, but doing those things now, and instead of approaching it as a potential barrier or challenge or obstacle or whatever it is, approaching it in a healthy way so that your training isn't affected by it.
I've got a good answer.
Yes.
Really basic right now to think of it. Yeah, and you brought it ideas of challenge. Think of it as challenge and threat. Okay. When we're in a threat state, our heart rate increases and our ventilation starts increasing. When we are in a challenge state, that stuff kind of slows down a little bit. So it's reframing the mindset. This is a challenge, not a threat. Altitude, a lot of people coming from sea level, and I see it all on the Facebook posts and say, oh my God, I need to have this, altitude tent or something, and if you come at it as if this is a threat, it's going to be harder. But if you're looking at it as a challenge, and you start looking at it, this is a challenge. What kind of things can I do to overcome that challenge, even mentally? And I always think going up to altitude, like I'll go up to 10,000 feet, but that's not doing me any real good other than teaching myself to, how to deal with this discomfort. So think about it coming from a place of, this is discomfort that I'm experiencing, and that I'm going to be okay with it. This is a challenge to go through this discomfort. I don't know if that, but I'll talk more about that next time.
Yeah, I'd love it. That's awesome. Yeah. Arron, what do you think?
I want to hear all about it. I have 1,000 questions. Yeah, crawling into your brain for an hour would be fantastic. I mean, you've done Leadville. You've got the mental side either down or can walk me through it. Um, so I mean, yeah, the questions I have would, I mean, again, I think we could talk on here for 6 hours around, you know, when you get there, the day before, the 2 days before, the morning of, like, how does, because I've run 100 miles. I've run 100 miles at elevation, not quite starting at 10,000 feet, but starting at 7. I've done Bryce Canyon. So I know my body can do it. So I'm pretty excited about knowing that I know what I need to do to get me there. But what do I do when I hit that first rough patch, right? So if it's the first 10 miles of runnable flat at 10,000 feet, like, how do I stop panicking, thinking, okay, I've got 90 more miles and this is gonna suck. I'm gonna hate it. I'm not gonna enjoy it. I'm not gonna make it. I'm gonna fail. Like, I've hit the wall before. And I'm pretty good at getting through, like, that initial, like, this hurts. I don't feel great. You know, that typical whining that happens in 100, or any race for that matter. But when things get tough, like if I feel like I'm losing oxygen because I'm at 10,000 feet and I've only been there for 5 days, like, pushing through that mentally is going to be probably more challenging than pushing through a cramp.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do it? Like, what are the things to focus on? What are the things to, like, when do you check out? When do you stay connected?
So let's reserve that.
Yeah.
Because
we're good. 6 hours right now.
Let's see. Here's the other thing, though. I will tell you that if it is any part of the race, and this is the last thing I'll say about it, if it is any part of the race where I am crewing you, I have already been watching Full Metal Jacket, and I've got my Arlie Ermy.
There you go.
Arlie Ermy rants to throw you. I didn't know they could stack shit high and that stuff like that. I will come at you because that's what, just so you know, Neal, that's where Arron doesn't like need a hug and a kiss. He said last week, he said, I need like the tough love. So my Arlie Ermy is locked and loaded. Also Kanye West when he interrupted. Arron, I'm gonna let you finish, but first, get your ass across the finish line. So I've got it locked and loaded. Well, guys, thank you so much. I told you just the tip of the iceberg. Neal, where would you like people to find you if they are curious about talking to you about their own goals, whether that's a coaching aspect, the psychological aspect? Where can people find you?
They could find me at, you can go to that Instagram site. You can find my website linked to that, but it is it's a long one, www.coloradopsychotherapyandsport.com.
In sport or and sport?
And sport. Coloradopsychotherapyandsport.com.
So guys, I will make sure to have that in the show notes if you're watching this on YouTube or Rumble or Odyssey or anything like that, check the show notes down below and the link to my, Arron, and Neal's Instagram. Also, Neal, you're on Strava, correct?
Yeah.
All our Stravas will be there if you're okay with that, Neal. And then I will also have a link to Neal's website right there that you guys can just kind of reach out. Yeah, and check us out everywhere you are. So yeah, I think that's about it. Arron, anything else for your week coming up that you'd like to add, sir?
No, I'm home all week, so I'm excited to stay home, stay put.
Awesome.
See what this week brings. I'm going to challenge myself to run a lot more this week than I have in previous weeks. So we'll see how that goes. See if I can knock 2, maybe 3 double-digit days this week. We'll see.
You're gonna have to bust out that Theragun a lot. I'm just saying, put some CBD. Is CBD legal in Virginia? It's legal everywhere. Put
Yeah.
some CBD salve on it with that icy hot stuff. I have some upstairs. Just go brrrr right into that muscle. Oh boy. Like my legs right now. I'm telling you, Neal, you were on mute earlier when I was talking about Hall Ranch and you started to say something about it. That place will kick you in the balls. Am I
Oh,
right?
I ran 4 hours in last weekend. That's been my go-to because it's 20 minutes away.
Yep.
You know, there's the OHV
Yep.
up on St. Vrain, or not St. Vrain, Left Hand Canyon. Left Hand Canyon is a place I need to go to very soon. But
Wait, where are you talking about up left hand?
so if you go up Left Hand Canyon, a couple miles actually from Howell Ranch.
Okay.
So the Howell Ranch turnoff, you go up on the right-hand side, there is a off-road. It used to be, you take ATVs up there, but now it's mountain biking.
I know where you're talking about. It's called, I think the trail on MTB project is called Ride Like a Moto. And it's like steep.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, there's a lot of, I haven't been up there, but I was looking at it on Strava today and that looks good. But Hall Ranch is, has been my go-to, but I need steeper stuff. And so I ventured into Boulder today.
Yeah, it's not, we're certainly at no shortage of, and here I'll show you, Arron, what the elevation chart of Ride Like a Moto looks like. And it goes, how much gain is on this thing? 2,000 feet of gain. That's not terrible, but it looks like that.
Oh, that looks fun.
A buddy of mine went back and forth on it today. He got 20 miles in, and he's up and down this thing and around and up Fairview Peak, and had 20 miles, and it looked like it was close to 8,000 feet of climbing.
Well, the ultimate. I swear, one of these days I want to do. And for people, by the way, who don't live in Colorado, I'll try to put links to all these things down below. But here's the ultimate, Neal, because in the end of May, they're reopening Schoolhouse Loop in the bottom. They're opening Howell Ranch again, right? As I'm sure you know, because Howell Ranch, again, a lot of you, Arron, you may even have seen Howell Ranch was on fire because of the Calwood fire a couple of years ago, and it's been closed since then for rehabilitation and all those things. So they're reopening a lot of that. Here's the ultimate, Neal. Up from Schoolhouse Loop, the bottom Howell, like 100 yards in the entrance. Schoolhouse Loop, the bottom one there, and then up on the Overland Loop. So you're kind of going counterclockwise on that, across to the main trailhead, right. up Wapiti, which by the way is now closed for raptors during the season, so you have to go up that fire road. Right. Up, do the kidneys, but only to go counterclockwise, or no, clockwise to the left. Go kidney to the hook into Picture Rock, down Picture Rock. Yep. Hit the road, run like the mile and a half to Hall Ranch, go up, do Hall Ranch, which is 12 miles, right? And then back down. That's like an 80-mile day.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely could be close to 30 or 40 miles easily.
Easy. Easily. A lot of climbing.
I've done the whole Picture Rock High. That's, if you do that in the entirety from Schoolhouse, I think it came out 24 miles.
Yeah, because just Picture Rock to the connection is 5.5.
Yeah.
Or 5.4 or something like that.
And speaking of Leadville, that grade, believe it or not, take out Hope Pass. And that's the grade you're going to have at Leadville for most of it. Now,
so that was going to be my question, Neal, is if I get the opportunity to come out to the Longmont Boulder area for a weekend, like quick 3-day trip, what would your suggestion for like a day and a half in the mountains look like?
You come out in June or July, really, because the snow, there's not a lot of snow. There's not a ton of snow in the mountains. I would say let's get up early, go to the Longs Peak Trailhead, go up and over. You can get a 20-mile run in and get 5,000 feet of vert easily at between 10 and 12,000 feet. and it's 50 minutes from our house.
Yep.
It's 49 from his. I got to get around my cul-de-sac. It's a little harder.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good one. Up and over Battle. But then you got to go up there and look at Long's Peak without summiting. I mean,
That's okay. It's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
It is beautiful in so many ways. You get so much terrain in that spot. That was my bread and butter. For Leadville,
Good to know.
bread and butter. Except it's really trail focused and technical trail focused, where you got to remember you're going to be running fire roads. A power line. A lot of power line is a fire road.
What could be good is Switzerland Trail.
Switzerland Trail is perfect. I
Switzerland Trail is great.
on the Switzerland Trail. That can look a lot like Powerline. In fact, about 3 or 4 miles, it can look exactly like Powerline. But you're a little bit lower in elevation, but the how it looks is similar. It's a little bit more technical on Powerline, but and it gets a little steeper, but not as much.
Yeah, the Switzerland Trail, just so you know, Arron, here, it used to be an old narrow gauge railway. Let me highlight myself here. Narrow gauge railway. And that's just one section of it. If you did the whole thing, it's well over 100 miles, like 120 miles, I think. If you did the whole like interconnected thing.
There's so many little side cuts on that.
Ways to get lost.
Roads get lost. And mountain bike rides up there that you could totally get lost.
Yeah, but it's not steep. There's very little of it that is steep because a rail car can't ever do that. So, I mean, this is 100 years ago, 150 years ago that there was a railway there, and they removed it, I don't know, 50 years ago, something like that. So it's but the path, the bed is still there.
You think about Powerline and Leadville, it's steep for the first coming back. It's steep. It's very steep for half mile. And then it gets to a fairly relatively, a decent grade. But the first half mile is, first 3/4 of a mile, it's steep. And that comes after 75 miles of running.
It's funny.
Everything comes after 75 miles of running. I don't care what race you run. Like the hard part is always at mile 75. I'm like, I don't believe it.
Well, I'll tell you, Neal, I don't know if you've ever ridden Pikes Peak. I rode my bike up Pikes Peak, my road bike. And I started from the Crystal Reservoir. It's 13 miles from the top. That, I'll tell you, Arron, it's not 75 miles from anywhere. Out of the driveway, I get going up and I'm like, the steep part going up toward Neal on left hand?
Yeah.
Yeah, the steep. It was like that, but the whole time. And I was like, oh my God.
I'd much rather have a warm up, a couple miles. Before you just start going up like that. Every time I've gone up like that, the heart rate's, way beyond threshold.
It's difficult. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me yet again. All those watching, please hit that subscribe button, whether you're on YouTube or whether you're on Rumble or Odyssey, or if you're on Spotify, or if you're on iTunes or Stitcher or Overcast. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, please subscribe to this. We would love to hear more from you. Leave us comments. So Neal's going to be coming back. He just said he was anyway, so I'm going to hold him to that. And I know where you live. And so if you've got questions from that side, and especially if it's like, hey, I experienced X in a race, how do I get past that? We want to hear those questions. So please feel free to drop those into the comments anywhere. Send us a note. Just Gearist on Instagram is me, or the Gearist on Twitter. You can follow us on Facebook, whatever it is. But gents, thank you so much. I hope you both have a lovely week. And we'll talk to you soon.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
All right. And we're out.